Hello, everyone. Welcome to ASEAN Pacific Affairs. In this episode today, we are going to talk about Indonesian foreign policy and its relation with US and China, how this Southeast Asian largest country will navigate between two these great powers. In my show today, I'm joined by Dr. Ahmad Rizky Umar. Dr. Ahmed is a seasonal lecturer at the School of Political Science and International Studies, University of Queensland, where he's completed his PhD. He's an expert in Indonesian foreign policy and ASEAN regionalism. Previously, he was a researcher and executive secretary of ASEAN Studies Center for Gajah University, Indonesia, between 2014 and 2017. I believe that this episode will be an interesting conversation between me and Dr. Muhammad. Indonesia is, as I said, is the largest Southeast Asian country, and its economy is remarkable. At the same time, it is the largest Muslim country, and this large country with the largest population try to navigate between the US and China. We will delve into the deep of details of this foreign policy and international relations. Welcome, Dr. Ahmed. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dr. Ahmed, I'm going to start from the history. When we look at these island countries and large countries, how has the Indonesia's historical relationship with both the United States and China influenced its present today foreign policy?
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Lokman Karadag. So historically, Indonesia has been has had a relationship with both United States and China since its early independence. So Indonesia was very close with China during Sukarno era, between 1959 until 1965, until Sukarno was toppled down in the crisis in 1965 until 66. Indonesia had a very close relationship with China, especially under Mao Zedong. After that, since 1966, Indonesia shifted its foreign policy closeness with United States, with, for example, the foreign investment law enabling the United States companies to invest in Indonesia, even though Indonesia has been historically adopting the independent and active foreign policy, but there has been cases with close relationship with both United States and China, and I think this close relationship shape the way Indonesia engage with China and United States. For example, historically, Indonesia has a very close security relationship with United States. So this shapes Indonesia's defense and security interactions with United States, especially under Jokowi Widodo, with the defense and weapons procurement, for example. But in economic sectors, Indonesia has been increasingly close with China, especially after the Belt and Road Initiative was initiated. And Indonesia has been a great beneficiaries of the Belt and Road Initiative. So the relationship has been a very much dynamic. Economically, Indonesia is close with China, but militarily and in security context, Indonesia tends to be closer to the United States.
Dr. Ahmed, from the academic perspective, Indonesian foreign policy much closer to which higher theories, for example, the realist theory, or following the edge game policy, or what kind of the foreign policy theoretical frameworks Indonesia current foreign policy stands toward these two great power, and especially the competition between them?
So Indonesia has been adopting the principles of independent and active foreign policy since the early independence era, which means that Indonesia should be independent, should be maintaining a distance with the great powers, but active in negotiating its own interests with the great powers, and also seeking the foreign policy to be accommodating the needs of the development policies in the domestic context. So I think, and I wrote this in an article last year at International Affairs, in which Indonesia's conceptions of international and regional order has been shaped by three important aspects. The first is the beliefs of sovereignty, and the beliefs that every countries in the world should have the sovereign equality, which means that every country is regarded regardless of the capabilities and economic capacities, they should be treated equal under international law. And I think the third aspect is important, which I think is shaping and characterizing Indonesia's positions as a middle power, is the beliefs on multilateralism. So Indonesia puts emphasis on resolving many crises and many important issues, not only through diplomacy but also through international institutions like ASEAN or international United Nations. So I think these three characters puts Indonesia's conceptions of international order, and puts also shapes Indonesia's foreign policy behavior. It is important to acknowledge that Indonesia is a middle power, in which Indonesia has a different stance and different patterns of behavior with United States and China. But I think Indonesia has been adapting to some extent liberal internationalism, with the emphasis on multilateralism, and also the needs for development and realistic foreign policy, which is closer, I think, to realism in this sense. So I think this is something that's characterizing Indonesia's foreign policy since the beginning.
Indonesia is a large maritime country.
Yeah.
So this geographical position of Indonesia, how affect its diplomatic strategies between the US and China?
So Indonesia has been emphasizing since the beginning the territorial integrity of not only of Indonesia but also of other Southeast Asian countries. And because of this emphasis on territorial integrity, Indonesia was very keen to promote and to base its actions and policies on international legal instruments, UNCLOS, for example, which shapes and rules the conduct in maritime security and policies, is one of the cornerstone of Indonesia's foreign policy since 1980s, right? And then this is something that locates Indonesia's geographic and thinking as a part of the strategic contemporary strategic thinking in Indonesia. The second, and I think this is also something that is related to the Indonesia's strategic location, is that Indonesia tends to be operating through regional institutional bodies. So the role of ASEAN is important because Indonesia believes that securing and maintaining integrity of the regional cooperation is one of the important ways to secure the peace in the region. So not only the beliefs on territorial integrity, but also regional resilience and regional cooperation is one of the cornerstones of Indonesia's foreign policy, I think, since the New Order era in 1966.
So when you touched to the position of ASEAN, can you a little bit discuss the role of ASEAN in shaping Indonesian interactions with these two great powers, US and
So
China?
Indonesia has been attempting to use ASEAN even though we all agree that ASEAN has limitations in interacting with the great powers. But Indonesia has been attempting to use ASEAN as a means to engage with both United States and China, right? And for example, Indonesia invites through ASEAN China and United States as ASEAN's regional partner, and as ASEAN's dialogue partner. And this is something that is important in Indonesia's foreign policy because it manages the ways in which United States and China interacts with other ASEAN countries. The second strategy that I think Indonesia and other Southeast Asian countries do is to bring these countries, including China and United States, in dialogue, especially China in South China Sea, because China is claimant in the South China Sea dispute. Indonesia now attempts to bring China in a dialogue to discuss the code of conduct in the negotiations of the South China Sea disputes. And even though the deadline is ongoing in 2026, Indonesia has been attempting to utilize the regional instruments and mechanisms to manage the relationship between great powers, besides utilizing the bilateral relations. So I think this is an important role of ASEAN, even though many people criticize ASEAN for its lack of effectiveness. But as we can see in South China Sea, in Myanmar as well, Indonesia uses ASEAN as a way to navigate the tensions and to mitigate any broader security risk from the region.
So, Dr. Ahmed, to what extent the ASEAN can be effective, as your
So
observation and experience? You know, just let me give an example about the Natuna Sea problem between the China and Indonesia. In such conflicts, ASEAN to what extent can be effective?
ASEAN can be an effective way to bring all interested and all parties in a dialogue. So bringing countries like China, the Philippines, and also other countries who claim who have a claim in South China Sea is important in order to mitigate or in order to avoid any potential crisis and any security risk in the future. Even though ASEAN doesn't really have a teeth to actually resolving the tensions. This is up to great powers. But I think ASEAN can play a role in making sure that everyone sticks to the rules, brings our countries in a dialogue and maintaining the dialogue, which is averting these countries to use any military force. To some extent, it has been limited. China, for example, uses some militia, for example, in South China Sea region, with the case of the Sierra Madre of the Philippines, for example. This is something that illustrates the use of the military force in the crisis, but bringing all countries in a dialogue, and also utilizing Indonesia's increasingly close relationship with China will be one important role to make sure that the problem can be resolved peacefully, even though it takes a long time in order to effectively resolving the conflict.
So, how does Indonesia will balance its national interest with the expectation and pressures from both US and China? Because there is an intense competition between these two great powers, and to some extent, maybe they request to choose a side. So, how Indonesia will balancing this? It is national interest, and the pressures come from the US and China. Because, as you said, Indonesia in one side has a security relations with the United States, traditional, and on the other hand has economic relations with China. This is a kind of dependency. How Indonesia will balance it?
Yeah, Indonesia attempts to balance the interest of these countries with two strategies. First is that maintaining and improving the bilateral relationship with both U.S. and China at the same time, and engaging constructively through diplomatic manners. So Indonesia is now, I think, has become comprehensive a strategic partner of the United States, for example. It's not an ally of the United States, but the relationship, the bilateral relationship, has been elevated to the comprehensive strategic partnership, which is, I think, one of the important bilateral way to engage with the United States. And Indonesia also has been a major partner of China in the Belt and Road initiatives. So I think these are two different ways. Indonesia, I think, is aware with the crisis, with the competition and the rivalry between the United States and China. But Indonesia wants to engage constructively with both countries in order to avoid any security threats emanating from the conflict. And also one of the another strategy, which is I think is important, is to make sure that Indonesia is independent. Indonesia's territorial integrity is respected. I think some strategists in Indonesia's defense and security circles try to make sure that Indonesia has an anti-access capabilities in order to ensure its territorial integrity in the case of any regional or global security crisis. So this is one way. Indonesia is not a great power. Indonesia is still developing. It's a major power. It's not also a major power, but Indonesia has been considered as a regional leader in Southeast Asia, and I think it is not many countries in Southeast Asia can actually engage with China and United States at the same time, while also engaging with the regional diplomacy to secure Indonesia's the country's interest. Singapore, for example, has had a good relationship with both countries, but it's just small countries, and it has a very narrow interest in defending the country, and it's understandable. Indonesia has been trying to shape ASEAN. Indonesia has been considered as a regional leader in ASEAN, so Indonesia is one of the major actors to balance the tensions between the US and China.
So the Indonesia, you say, is a regional leader and largest country. It has the economic interest and developing economy. From here, what are the key economic interests that Indonesia seeks to protect or enhance its relations with the US and China?
So the first, I think, the strategic interest is Indonesia's dominance in nickel industries, which also has implications in the EV industries, which is something that Indonesia is now keen to protect. Indonesia is now a major leader in nickels, with support from China's state-owned companies. Indonesia has been able to navigate the global commodity markets, and this is something that Indonesia wants to engage with. United States, I think one of the important aspect of the relationship is the security partnership. I think Indonesia wants to engage with United States to buy new weapons, for example. Indonesia is now on its way to modernize its military systems and defense system as well, and Indonesia wants to gain the benefits with close security cooperations with United States. And I think this is something that Defense Minister Prabowo, who will be the president late this year, has been doing since 2019. So, yep, Indonesia has been engaging with both countries, and it has a security and economic interests, which Indonesia wants to protect by constructively engaging with US and China.
Indonesia is historically has a symbolic power for non-alignment stance. So, how does the Indonesia leverage its non-aligned stance in its diplomatic negotiations and with both countries?
Yeah. Indonesia has been one of the leading actor in non-aligned movement in 1960s, though in 1970s and 1980s, Indonesia did not actually engage with the non-aligned movements in favor of closer economic relations with Western countries. But I think now Indonesia wants to maintain its non-alignment. Indonesia has never been a security allies of either United States or China or on any of the great powers. And it is reflected also in Indonesia's emphasis on regional diplomacy through ASEAN, and also with engagement with United Nations and other international institutions in order to keep the global order peaceful and balanced. Also, one of the important aspects in Indonesian foreign policy is the South-South cooperations. I think Indonesia now seeks to internationalize its state-owned enterprises, engaging with other global South countries, and especially active in G77, for example. Indonesia wants to widen its leverage, not only in extractive industries, but also by expanding its state-owned enterprises and domestic capitals to other countries, engaging with Uni Arab Emirates, also with some African countries. And Indonesia has been trying to engage with these non-traditional partners in order to widen its leverage in international politics. So the South-South cooperation is now one of the increasing and emerging agenda in Indonesia's foreign policy. Also with the Pacific elevation diplomacy in the South Pacific, for example, Indonesia has been actively engaged with the South Pacific countries, and it seems that Indonesia uses these strategies of South-South cooperations to maintain the balance between the United States and China, and engaging with as diverse as actors as possible.
So, what kind of the strategic partnership or alliance is Indonesia pursuing to mitigate risk associated with the US-China competition?
So, one of the partnership that Indonesia is now conducting is, for example, with Australia, and this is important as Australia is one of Indonesia's closest neighbor. Australia has had a historically very good relationship and alliance with the United States. And Indonesia wants to improve the relationship. I think the two countries are now engaging with negotiations to improve the security and economic relationship in order to strengthen bilateral relationship. So one strategy that Indonesia engage is to widen engagement with United States partners like Australia, and also Indonesia's relationship with Japan is also an important way for Indonesia to manage the balance. For example, Prabowo Subianto visited not only China but also Japan and Malaysia during his early visits this year, which I think is interesting because Indonesia wants to keep the balance between not only China but also U.S. interests like Japan and Australia. I think Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles also has a very close relationship with Prabowo, and I believe that both people now want to negotiate improvement in Indonesia's bilateral relationship. So this is one way for Indonesia to maintain the balance and also to mitigate any security risk. Because if there is any global security crisis, then we could expect that Australia would be in alliance with United States, and then this is something that would be threatening Indonesia's strategic interests in the region.
Dr. Ahmed, regional security and defense strategies for a country, especially in a time of great power competitions, playing a key role for a state. So, in what ways has Indonesia foreign policy towards the US and China will impact its regional security and defense strategies?
So now I think Indonesia's relationship with United States and also Indonesia's relationship with China has been improving, which is something that Indonesia expects to do so, because Indonesia wants to leverage its benefits. So I think there are three ways that it could affect the regional security, which I think Indonesia still in its on track to navigate. The first is that I think with regard to South China Sea crisis now, it is the relationship between Philippines, for example, with China is now deteriorating, and it is possible for United States to engage because United States has the military base, for example, in the Philippines, and Indonesia has a very close security relationship. Philippines has a very close security relationship with United States. So I think Indonesia's engagement with United States and China would bring these countries to the region, but at the same time, it also brings these countries to negotiate through institutional means. So I think this is something that could affect the regional security, not in a threatening way, but in order to maintain the dialogue. The second aspect, which I think is also important, is that Indonesia's relationship, and this is something related to China. Indonesia's relationship with China, which has been characterized by economic relationship, could be somewhat, I think, making Indonesia not be threatening to China's positions, especially in the United Nations. For example, in many UN votes, Indonesia voted against resolutions that threatening China's interests. For example, with regards to the Xinjiang, for example, and with regard to other aspects that marginalize China. So this is something that I think would affect in the long term the Indonesia's engagement with China, because Indonesia at the same time also wants to constructively engage with China in a peaceful way in South China Sea. But Indonesia has a very close economic relationship, so I think it can bring some dilemma. I don't think it is tensions, but it is a dilemma for Indonesia to navigate its bilateral relationship. And also another aspect I think that could be important is, for example, the potential crisis in Taiwan. For example, with potential crisis in Taiwan, it's possible that United States will engage militarily, and then this is something that could affect the regional security stability in Southeast Asian region, because of China's military relationship with Philippines, for example. Close also, United States also has close relationship with Malaysia and Singapore, for example, and the flashpoint would be not only about United States, but also Indonesia's territorial waters could be a victim. For example, with the transit of the ship, for example, with the submarines, for example. And this is something that has been a concern. That's why Indonesia was very critical with AUKUS, because it can make Indonesia's territorial waters as a as a flashpoint in any potential crisis in the region.
Dr. Ahmed, I'm going to make a minor comment from here. In Taiwan, especially in the Taiwan case, if a conflict or any worst scenario happened between the United States, or of course the US allies in the region will be involved. From here, I would like to just link it to the Taiwan situation with the AUKUS and how Indonesia will think to give permission to the Australian nuclear submarines to pass through Indonesian maritime powers, and what will be Indonesian approach?
So I think Indonesia's strategy now is the at the access for any submarines, for example. And there are some now arguments because it could be legal to use Indonesia's territorial waters for submarines, for example, and Indonesia could actually stop, even though legally this is still under debates for Indonesia to do so. But there's some works by the Alianza, for example, my colleague at National University of Singapore, who thinks that Indonesia might be justified. But this is something that I think Indonesia won in the last place, because this is a very serious crisis. What Indonesia can do now is to negotiate with Australia in order to ensure that its territorial waters are still free from any great powers interference. So yeah, I think this is something that Indonesia doesn't want to. And I think one way, I think Indonesia's position with AUKUS is now shifting. Indonesia was very critical in the beginning. I think it's also because of the communication between Indonesia and Australia during Scott Morrison era was not very good. But now it's been improving, much improving since Anthony Albanese's government in Australia. So Indonesia negotiates. Another tricky part is not only the use of territorial waters, but also the role of ASEAN and Southeast Asian countries, because it might force certain countries to take sides. And Indonesia might need to convince some countries like Vietnam or Philippines not to do so. And I think this is one of the tricky way. But I think as long as ASEAN can be still maintained, regardless of the limitation of those limitations, to mitigate any security risks, to bring everyone to talk at in the table, so Indonesia can still play a role in navigating any security risk or tensions in the future.
Okay, the technology and the trade issues, I think one of another important aspects of the US-China relations. And of course, the Southeast Asian countries, I think, in the forefront in terms of the implications and effects. So when we come to the Indonesia, how does Indonesia navigate these technological and trade issues amid the US and China trade tensions, especially?
Yeah, Indonesia wants to take benefits from engagement with China and United States. One thing, and this is, I think, a big thing that Indonesia wants to pursue is technology transfer in investments. Indonesia now regulates, bans the export of nickels, for example, and forced any companies to contribute to the domestic market, and also contributes to establish smelter, for example, the processing technologies, the process industrial facilities in the country. And this is something that Indonesia has been able to pursue with regard to nickel, for example. And Indonesia has been engaging with this regulations since a decade ago, with support from China. This creates tensions with not only with the United States, but also with the European Union. I think there is now there has been a case, a dispute brought by the European Union to the World Trade Organizations to ban to challenge Indonesia's export ban of nickels, and also the domestic market contributions. foreign investors. But Indonesia wants to enable technology transfer in order to do so. In terms of security technology, and this is something that Indonesia wants to do, is that Indonesia is now on the course of modernizing its weapons and military systems. And Indonesia is now under Prabowo Subianto as defense ministers, has been engaging with the very diverse weapons procurements from around the world. So Indonesia wants to diverse its engagement with the security technology providers. One way is that whether or not Indonesia has the capabilities to use the technologies, and I think this is something that in the gap that Indonesia needs to fill, because Indonesia needs to ensure that it has the capability to use any military or security technologies, for example, to defend its own national security. But overall, Indonesia wants to force the big countries like United States and China to contribute to technology transfer and with weapons procurements. And this is something that Indonesia has been pursuing since Jokowi Dodo.
I think these great power competitions bring a huge pressure on Southeast Asian countries, and not only Indonesia. I think other small countries also try too hard to become neutral or independent or not choosing the side. But Indonesia's position, of course, is different due to its size and the populations and the maritime territorial integrity. So, do you see, Dr. Ahmed, any indications from the Indonesian foreign policy whether it shifts toward either China or United States?
So I think if we follow what Prabowo Subianto has been doing in the past couple of months, Indonesia still wants to maintain its independent and active foreign policy, engaging with both countries while taking the benefits from the bilateral relationships. It is, I think, Indonesia's relationship with China has been improving under Jokowi Dodo. Jokowi has been more keen to engage with China because of its benefits. Indonesia wants to develop the Eastern Indonesian region, for example. Indonesia wants to build infrastructure, and this is something that China offers in the past decades. But Indonesia, under previous government, Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, has been also engaging with United States with regard to democracy promotions and, for example, the trade relationship with the U.S. And its allies, which I think is also important. Prabowo might be taking a middle ground between these tendencies. First, Prabowo has vowed to continue the legacies of President Jokowi. So it is unlikely that Prabowo will throw China under the bus, for example, or to diminish any good relationship with China, because partly Indonesia benefits from that. But I think in the future, in the next 5 years, we can expect Indonesia to engage with United States more in security partnership. So this is something that we could expect, even though whether or not Indonesia will shift its closeness between the two countries, we might need to wait. But Prabowo has been very close with United States. Prabowo was a military commander. He was trained in one United States fort. He was very close with United States military, and this is something that I think Indonesia will be keen to do so until under Prabowo Subianto to engage with the United States.
Dr. Ahmed, little bit go to the details of these issues. How Indonesia will navigate between the U.S. Indo-Pacific strategy and China's Belt and Road initiatives? What will be Indonesia's approach? Because it is not easy to navigate between these two great powers.
Yeah. Well, so far, Indonesia has been engaging very active with the Belt and Road initiatives. So China contributes to many infrastructure development projects. For with a city in Rempang, for example, smelters. China has been supporting Indonesia with its nickel industries through Belt and Road initiatives and established many infrastructure development initiatives, even with the high-speed rail train in from Jakarta to Bandung, for example, which is an example of the Indonesia's growing relationship with China. And at the same time, I think this is something that United States has a gap to fill because the Indo-Pacific economic framework is not as massive as China, partly because Southeast Asia is not a country of priority for U.S. foreign policy right now. U.S. foreign policy has been very much centered in Japan and also with Australia, for example. And even though I think President Joe Biden wants to shift its focus and attention to the Indo-Pacific region, there is still no benefit that the United States has offered to the countries in the Pacific. And it is exemplified with the IPF, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, which I think is no match with the Belt and Road initiatives. So yeah, this is something that I think Indonesia wants to engage with the United States in a constructive way, but this is something that the United States has yet to offer.
Okay, so what are the latest diplomatic engagements or agreements between the Indonesia and the US? How does this compare to those with Indonesia did with China? Because you say that the Prabowo will be most closer to the United States due to its military relationships and or diplomatic relations, or United States offer something new compared to previous government to new administration.
Well, one thing that Indonesia's relationship with the United States is characterized in the past 5 years is that Indonesia did not have a strong ambassador and permanent ambassador to the United States. The latest ambassador, Ambassador Ruslan Ruslani, for example, was recalled on I think it's only for a couple of months because he was appointed in a new position in the government. And the ambassador's to the United States position has been vacant for 2 years before that. So there is a missing gap that Indonesia has been unable to fill with regards to its relationship with the United States. And it is something different compared to China because Indonesia's diplomatic engagement with China is very massive. Even though Indonesia's diplomatic relationship with China is actually new. And if we take a look, for example, at the number of consulates, Indonesia's relationship with the United States has been better. Indonesia doesn't have no many consulates in China compared to the United States. Also, United States also engaged with Indonesia has been since 1966, which is still very far. But I think the characteristics of Indonesia's U.S. relationship under President Jokowi has been relatively low. The question is that whether the Indonesia will step up its relationship with United States in the future, and we need to wait until we know who will be the foreign minister. I think there are rumors now in Indonesia's foreign policy circles that Ambassador Ruslan Ruslani, the former ambassador of the United States, will be appointed as the foreign minister. He was the campaign director of Prabowo and Gibran in the election this year. However, I think it doesn't mean that it might signal a stronger relationship with the United States. It will depend on whether or not the United States will have something to offer and something that United States can bring to Indonesia that contributes to Indonesia's security or development sectors? We need to wait not only in Indonesia side but also in United States sides.
Okay, Dr. Ahmed, the Indonesia has a different, aspects of its economy, security, defense policy. Also has its different identity. From here, and that's why not only affected from the regional developments, also has been affected from the international developments. From him, I would like to link my questions. Given the recent developments around the world, for example, the ongoing war in Gaza and the Ukraine, or in South China Sea disputes as a regional. So how these geopolitical events will influence Indonesia's stance between the US and China?
So it is interesting because if you take a look at Indonesia's position in Gaza war, for example, Indonesia has been in tension with the United States. Indonesia champions the two-state solutions, and Indonesia doesn't have any diplomatic relationship with Israel, for example, and Indonesia emphasizes the call for ceasefire, which is somewhat inherent with China's positions in the Gaza war. So, and I think Indonesia plays an important role in Gaza crisis, for example, by mobilizing other Islamic countries, even though still limited, not as massive as the other Middle Eastern countries like Qatar or Egypt is doing. But Indonesia attempts to play a role in the call for the ceasefire, which is in tensions with U.S. positions, which has been pro-Israel since the beginning. With regard to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Indonesia tends to sit in the fence because Indonesia doesn't want to make sure Indonesia doesn't want the crisis to be spilled over to the region. For example, Indonesia emphasized the food security in the context of the war, and even though Indonesia condemns the invasion, Indonesia doesn't explicitly mention Russia, and this is an interesting development because Indonesia also has diplomatic relationship with Russia, and this is also something that is in tension with United States. But I think, and this is also important because President Jokowi tried to play a more prominent role in mediating the Russia and Ukraine. President Jokowi came to Kyiv and met President Zelensky. And Indonesia has been the first Asian countries to visit Ukraine, for example, which is somewhat an achievement for Indonesia. But also after visiting Kiev and meeting President Zelensky, President Jokowi also met President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. So Indonesia tries to somewhat maintaining the balance between the two countries. Indonesia doesn't offer a strong combination to the crisis, but at the same time, Indonesia still try to play a role as a representative of Asian country and a Muslim country. So I think it's very much visible in Ukraine crisis and in Gaza crisis. It means that even though Indonesia has relationship with China, Indonesia has relationship with the United States, Indonesia has an independent way. And it inevitably, to some extent, as we can see in Gaza, for example, it puts Indonesia's positions closer to China. But I think this is something that Indonesia wants to take a distance in order to ensure its independence of foreign policy.
Dr. Ahmed, from here, just I will make another small comment here. Regarding the Indonesia's approach toward the Gaza war, over the past few months, some rumors come to light. For example, like the the Israel and the Indonesia try to make establish a diplomatic relations similar to the Arab countries or Gulf countries. I think the reason was, according to the rumors, they said Indonesia need to join to the OECD and need to the Israel helps. In this regard, in Indonesia, the government and the public has a different approach, or what will be your opinion about these rumors and these developments?
Yeah, I think it also reflects to desire from certain circles, especially in defense community, to have a closer relationship with Israel, because Indonesia will be benefiting from uh, uh, weapons, for example, and defense security partnership. However, it would contradict Indonesia's official stance, which is outlined by the foreign ministry, that Indonesia has no recognition of Israel, even though Indonesia doesn't rule it out unless the in Israel's occupations of Palestine is withdrawn and Palestine is recognized as independent state. So the official stance is not only pro-Palestinian. Indonesia contributes to the humanitarian assistance to Palestine, having medical assistance, building a hospital in Gaza. But I think at the same time, we need to know that Indonesia also has a trade relationship with Israel, and also security relationship with Israel has been ongoing since at least 1960s. So this is something that I think Indonesia could face a dilemma, even though the dilemma is not as big as the dilemma with regard to China. But I think unless Israel withdraws its occupations and recognize Palestine as an independent state, uh, there will be no official establishment of diplomatic relationship with Israel, with Indonesia. And it is important to see that public opinion in Indonesia has been increasingly pro-Palestinian, and then this, I think, would make any move to establish diplomatic relationship with Israel will be unpopular. And I don't think Prabowo Subianto will be making any move to recognize Israel. But this is something, a development that Indonesia, we need to wait in Indonesia. But I don't think that the rumor in Israel's newspaper is true. It's not only because of the public opinion, but also because the strong positions of the foreign ministry to not to recognize Israel.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the one last questions. What feedback or reactions have emerged from the domestic stakeholders in Indonesia regarding its foreign policy toward the US and China? From the, for example, foreign ministry establishment, defense establishments, public opinion, what kind of the pressure will be on the government?
So one of the pressures from the public, especially from the business circle, is to for Indonesia to maintain a constructive relationship with both countries. I think now the Indonesian business community welcomes China's investment in the region and also in the country. But also at the same time, Indonesia has a very close relationship with economic relationship with United States in the past. But now I think Indonesia's economic relationship with China has been improving. China is now among Indonesia's biggest trade partners, besides the benefactors of Indonesian development through Belt and Road initiatives. And also, this is something that the business community welcomes. For foreign ministry, I think the foreign ministry also welcomes the improvements because it means that Indonesia can still balance the engagement with other great powers, while making sure that China will be able to talk in an institutional and diplomatic manners with ASEAN countries. But I think the business community will welcome this improvement as long as it benefits Indonesia's development. With regard to United States, it is important to see that Indonesia's public opinion with United States has been usually good. But the latest survey from ICS, for example, show that Indonesia's public opinion with United States is deteriorating. I think because of the war in Gaza, the inability of United States to bring benefits to Indonesia, and also the unclear positions of United States in the Pacific region. But also there is an improving public opinion with China, and this is something that we need also to note, because there could be some changes of public opinion in the future. The question is that whether this trend will continue, and whether Indonesia's public will still support China in the case of any crisis, for example. I think this is something that we need to see from the public in this domestic context.
Dr. Ahmed, before go to the close our shows, what will be your comment about the future of Indonesia's foreign policy? Because I think Indonesia will close the area of Jokowi, and later of the year, end of the year, another administration will come to power. Most will be probable, I think. How the outside external powers, and even from the academics or the tourists, what kind of Indonesia we will see from here to 5 to 10 years? What will be your comment?
So I think in the next 5 years, possibly in 10 years, I think the trend that has been started since Jokowi will be continued. Indonesia will still engage with China. China will still become the biggest economic partners of Indonesia, while at the same time Indonesia still wants to engage with the United States to secure the region with regard to provide the weapons and modernization of the military systems, for example. This is something that Indonesia expects from the United States. I think what can be expected to change is the focus. If President Jokowi emphasize the infrastructure development, the investment, which makes his foreign policy closer to China, I think Prabowo will emphasize the military, the modernizations of Indonesia's defense system, and it can, to some extent, put Indonesia's foreign policy closer to the United States. However, President Prabowo has vowed to continue the legacies of President Jokowi, so I don't think that Prabowo will marginalize China in this diplomatic relations and his foreign policy. But this is something that we need to wait until Prabowo is inaugurated. But I think there will be no basic changes in Indonesia's foreign policy. I think the basic principle will stay the same. It is the independent and active foreign policy.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. It's an interesting discussion about Indonesia. Thank you for your great information and details you share with us. Yeah. Also, thank you for my audiences who spare your time and listen us. And thank you for the others will watching the video record. Please don't forget to share and spread this link of the video with your friends, with international relations students, political science students who are interested with Indonesian foreign policy. And would you like to see Indonesia, what will be Indonesia's position in the next 5 to 10 years? Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and wait for our upcoming live stream shows. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ahmed, as well.
Yep. Goodbye.
Okay.